Well, welcome once again. This is the Doctor of Digital at the Doctor of Digital podcast. Purpose of the show is to transform your business and life with education and inspiration. I introduce busy business leaders and executives to trends in business, technology, marketing your message, and to highlight people you should know. Did you know that aiming for at least 5 to 8% in net annual returns is a realistic starting point for even a beginning passive real estate investment? There are three main types of investments: direct ownership of rental properties, real estate investment trusts, and real estate crowdfunding. There are specific factors impacting your returns: property type and location, investment cost, finance, and market conditions. There's no one size fits all answer to how much passive income you can generate from real estate. Conduct thorough research, understand your risk tolerance, and seek professional advice before making investment decisions. During this episode, we'll do a deep dive into the changes and hot topics in real estate investment to understand the market and how to navigate the unique dynamics of the field. By the end of this episode, you will be better equipped to know what to do, and I encourage you to reach out to my special guest, Jim Manning, who is also the founder of Three Doors, Homeways, CFL Holdings, Passive Wealth Fund, and Doorway Properties. And with that, I want to welcome Jim. Jim Manning, welcome. And howdy, partner. I might be able
Howdy,
to
partner.
with
How's it going? glad to be here, guys. How's everything going?
We're doing great. I was telling Jim that since we're having a little bit of rain, that's really difficult for us in San Diego. We're not used to that stuff, but we'll brave the winter somehow and we will survive. So we're doing fine here.
That's right. Yeah, here in St. Louis, we're setting records. It's going to be 67 degrees here, so we're in great shape on our end.
That's awesome. That sounds like that's the golfing day, right? You get out there
That's
if you
right.
can.
That's right. Yeah, we'll see. All the tee times are booked right now, so we'll see if
Well,
I get
maybe
out.
something will open up. Let's hope so. I got fingers
Yeah.
crossed. Jim, one of the things I wanted to ask you about, because I think knowing a little bit about your background, you said something which I think would catch a lot of people's eye. Can you tell us a little about your first job and actually what you did and how you got into the field that you are these days?
Oh yeah, absolutely. So I worked for a self-made billionaire. This was in 2006 when the market was tanking and the economy was tanking, and I got a freelance job working for the self-made billionaire for a couple weeks. And all we were doing was we were putting labels on bottles of wine. And this guy had so much wealth that at one point I had over 200 grand in my hands, and it took me 2 weeks of taking a bottle out and then printing out a label and then putting the label on and putting it back in, right?
Wow.
And yeah, I really started. I idolized this guy as a 22-year-old. He had the gorgeous girlfriend, the penthouse,
Sure.
the house, the lake house. He had everything, and he was a self-made billionaire. And
Hmm.
I really that really gave me such a great experience because it was like, wow, this guy is what you can achieve as an American.
Yeah.
Like he wasn't given anything. Like I'm from a middle class family, which is a huge blessing because I didn't enter into the work world with any debt, but I certainly wasn't born with a silver spoon where I was gifted a lot as well, right?
Right. Sure.
So that really sparked something entrepreneurial in me. Like, wow, like, well, he's just a guy, he eats just like I do. He puts one pant leg on at a time, like I do. So maybe I should do something like that. But on the flip side of that, as I got to know him, at first I was idolizing him, and then I started to realize as the onion peeled back that he was absolutely miserable. His daughters wouldn't talk to him, and his wife wouldn't talk to him either. Um, and then I thought, like, well, what a tragedy to have someone that's
Sure.
achieved the pinnacle of business success
Hmm.
at the cost of his personal life and his contentment and how much he was able to enjoy life. So that was as a 22-year-old that to be given that gift of perspective of what not only what's possible but what the cost is of what's possible
Yeah.
really had a dramatic impact on my life. And And so then I got in the corporate America job at a reinsurance company for about 18 months. Just realized, okay, I'm not going to make it big and do amazing things working for for that route. Like that's not going to be what's best for me. And then I decided I started studying in different investment opportunities and got into real estate in 2007. Gosh, it's been over 17 years now, and haven't looked back since. Oh gosh, 30 we're over 3,500 deals now on the investment side of things. And yeah, like you introduced it, there's 5 real estate companies that I founded now, and 4 of which really run without me. And I get to just do silly things like wear cowboy hats and hang out with people and make new friends. No.
Really mature, though, I'd say, for a 22-year-old to understand and both be inspired, but also have the perspective of seeing that there's more to life than just having like financial success, because sometimes there's a cost for the financial success. So I'm curious now, since you've been in the field for about 17 years or
Yeah.
so and seen a lot of changes, what would you say are some of the changes that have been most significant over the course of your career?
Oh man, what a great question. So, one of the things that I've learned from a business perspective is that there's markets of the moment.
Oh,
And I'll speak real estate here, but you can apply it to like any industry.
okay.
Like when I first started out, short sales were the market of the moment. And what a short sale was you talked to a bank and you said, "Hey, this homeowner is underwater. They owe you $100,000, but it's only worth $50,000. Are you okay with selling the property short of the loan amount?" And you
Okay.
negotiated and everything like that. If you talk to a realtor that's only been in for like the last 5 years and you ask them what a short sale is, they like, oh, I sort of know, but
Yeah.
they don't, because short
Right.
sales really aren't a thing anymore with all the equity that everyone has, right?
Okay.
So we've had to transform our business and kind of flow along with where the market of the moment is. In every market, there's been opportunities. Every market, there's been think money to be made. It's just a matter of not being so stuck in our ways. And if we were only doing short sales right now, my goodness, I mean, it would be a very difficult business model to be running.
So you're saying that it's probably knowing and being adept enough to watch the market conditions and knowing how to adjust and when to adjust. I mean, or timing and also being observant about what is actually happening in the market.
Yeah, and the other interesting thing is, so when I got into real estate in 2007, I had people like my parents didn't like it. They tried to put a lot of fear in me, and then I had other people say like, "Are you crazy? Like real estate right now in 2007?"
Yeah.
And I said, "Well, you know what? I want to be greedy when other people are fearful. I want to be fearful when other people are greedy. I want to go against the grain. And so when
Mm-hmm.
the market does swing back up, I can go on a run because I'll actually know what I'm doing at that point,
I see.
not have the market already be ready to rock and roll and have me trying to figure it out. Um, and that's I learned that from Warren Buffett. Actually, that was a quote from Warren Buffett on being greedy and fearful. But I mean, it's really worked to go against the grains. Really worked out well, and I think if there's anything that I've been blessed with, it's really been being able to see things and understand things. And so right now, if you ask me, okay, well, what's the market at the moment now in real estate? Well, commercial real estate is in the office building sectors is difficult. Because ever since COVID, we don't really know what the supply and demand is anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Because of people, are they going to work from home? Are they coming back? A lot of people have came back, but we're doing this hybrid thing. And there's a lot of bigger institutions bigger companies that have downsized. So
Mm-hmm.
depending on where if you own a commercial office building, depending on is it a type A building, is it depending on what it is, it could have benefited from COVID or been hurt from it. So
Yeah.
like there's all sorts of complexity and variables there. What I can speak to is on my expertise is on the residential side of things.
Okay.
um, right now, the strategy we're doing is we're buying and holding on to as much real estate as we possibly can. Harvard did a study that there's 21 million houses that need to be built through 2038 just to
Mm,
keep up with demand on
yeah.
housing. And we're already 5 million houses short. So, and to put that into perspective, it takes builders about an entire year to build 1.4 million homes. So, like what we're looking at doing and taking advantage of right now is just buying and holding on to as much as we possibly can, because yeah, it doesn't take a genius to figure out how to take advantage or what's going to happen there with a housing shortage, right? So,
Yeah. So with
um,
the commercial property, you're saying that it's kind of a wait and see attitude because it's unclear where it might be going because you don't know, say, if people are coming back or if it's a hybrid, so you won't need as much space. But then in the real estate, in the private market and private homes, say one family homes, those are definitely something to hang on to currently.
yeah, that's right. And I mean, there's definitely, I mean, there's money to be had in the commercial office space too, and there's different sectors, but you really have to like have an expertise there and really know what you're doing versus what's happening in the residential side of things, where it's like there's on a macro level there's such an advantage with what's happening with the housing shortage that
Mm,
you can be quite frankly, you don't have to be that good of an investor, and you can do really well
I see.
because the market conditions are so favorable, right?
Right. How do
Yeah.
you compare, or do you compare, and how does multifamily units fit in? So, I mean, there's people who are saying, I've heard people say in real estate, you can't make money by like saying just owning one family homes or single family homes. It's more difficult because you have to qualify, you have to have better credit scores, you have to put it down. But people invest in multi units and they say it's easier to get into that. How to do the multi unit investment compare to commercial and also single family homes?
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, when you listen to a lot of these podcasts, it is important to know like what individual's expertise is. I think a lot of it comes down to execution. If you are gifted and you really know like apartment complex as well, there's an opportunity there to execute and make some good money. Um, on our side of things, our expertise lies in the single family realm. Like that's where we've done the 3,500 deals. That's what we know.
Mm,
Um, and we really like the macro, what's going on with the housing shortage. So, like for me to uh, switch strategies and get into something else, like is probably going to cost me a lot of money to do it. But that doesn't
mm,
mean like someone listening doesn't already have the knowledge or doesn't already have
right.
that expertise where that wouldn't necessarily make sense. So um, so I mean, I'd say both can work, and they can work at a really good level, just depending on uh, who the team is, and who you're working with.
Right, and that's probably key, right? So, I mean, there's a maybe a disadvantage with multi-unit properties because I think you have to deal with other people for one thing and get the financing. You have to know about these opportunities, and so there are certain things, there's certain limitations for a person to get into that in the first place. And that's, I think that's what you're
Yeah,
saying as well too. You have to have the expertise first of all, and for your business probably doesn't make sense because
well,
I see time and expense is worth a lot for you.
yeah, yeah, and there's so the expertise has to exist. Now, the good news though is like if you have the right people on the team, it can be someone else's expertise. Like it doesn't necessarily have to like be your own expertise. It just has to be
Mhm.
someone that's trustworthy, that knows what the heck they're doing, and has a the ability to execute on the plan as well. So that would be like the only caveat with what you said there, Mick. Uh, that I would say on that.
Yeah, and is there different levels of investment? I mean, say usually I'm talking with people on podcasts that are business leaders, so I'm going to say they have a fair amount of money, they have some disposable income. But is there a difference when people are investing? I mean, is it good for an early investor, someone in mid-career, someone who wants passive income as an older person? Like, is there a type, or is there a kind of a person that's a good prospect for investing?
Yeah, I mean, I think real estate really should be for everybody. Personally, now I'm a real estate guy. I get that, but
Yeah.
um, I had a a moment with my dad actually. So he's a self-made millionaire and he's in his 70s, and he came to me and he said, "Hey Jim, I'm afraid of running out of money before I die."
Mm,
And I was like, "Wait, what?" Because I knew he had I mean, yeah, middle class, but he worked his tail off and he saved his money. My mom worked too,
mhm.
and they did everything that they were supposed to do. And he said, "Well, the stock market's going bonkers. It's left, right, and sideways." This was during
Yeah.
COVID. And if I live to be 90, I'm okay. If I live to be 100, I'm not. And I got to thinking about it. I'm like, well, I'm 38. I mean, this was a couple years ago, and I can retire now if I want, and I would be okay. And it's not because I'm this
Mm,
genius. It's because the retirement problem that people think is and that the financial industry has programmed us to do is to say, hey, you need $5 million in your nest egg, or you need $10 million to keep the lifestyle up. And we don't have a crystal ball that says we're going to live to be 90 or 80 or 105 or whatever. We don't know how long we're going to live. So to know exactly what that nest egg is going to be is, it can be a little unsettling. But if you have real estate, and real estate can solve the retirement problem because it can replace your income, and real estate
mhm.
can create passive income. And so at a 38-year-old, as a 38-year-old, why I would be okay with retiring is because I have passive income coming in that covers my monthly expenses, and the asset appreciates over time and grows up, goes up in value and keeps up with inflation, and rents keep up, and everything like that. Um, so I got to so the issue though is my dad and my parents should not be a landlord. They are not professionally equipped to do it well. And I see a lot of people that say, okay, well, I fall in love with real estate. And then they get a rental and they're like, oh, okay, well, I don't want to plunge toilets. I don't have the right contacts. There's a
Yeah.
lot of work that goes into it. And I think where a lot of people stumble is that especially us guys, like the ego can take over and say, oh, well, I'm crazy successful business owner. I know what I'm doing over here. I make millions of dollars or hundreds of thousands of dollars a year. Well, of course I can be a landlord. There's nothing much to that. Well, uh, then you find out, well, I don't have the right contacts, or it's a whole lot of work. I got to find the property. I got to know how to screen the tenant right and all that. But it wasn't very commonplace knowledge that until recently, like how to do fund structures.
Mm,
Like when I first started 18 years ago, I mean, I wouldn't have ever told you I was going to be a real estate fund manager. I own two real estate funds now. That was I didn't even know what that existed. And because they're becoming more and more commonplace, and
yeah.
more business owners like myself can study them and figure them out, and then open up opportunities for other people. um, that now the opportunities are more available to people to invest in as well.
Mm,
And I mean, and my parents, they didn't have that in the 90s. Like, this is 2024 now, and so uh, there's a lot of financial advisors. There's a lot of people that are kind of teaching to how the world was, and not necessarily to where
mm,
the world has moved. And the private alternative investment spaces has been doubling since 2000, and it's continuing to double, even though it's the market size is in the trillions now. And there's a reason for that. And unfortunately, there's a lot of financial advisors that are in the nest egg mentality. And it makes
mhm.
sense, because for a financial advisor, if you make a percentage of fees on someone's, they call it assets under management, and make like if I have a doctor that's a client or a small business owner, I just want them to work as long as possible and
Sure.
make, instead of the nest egg being $5 million, if it's $10 million, I'm making double the amount of money for that individual.
Yeah.
So they're actually incentivized to keep us working as long as possible and to not and to retire as late as possible. So it's interesting to think about and all the changes that have happened, but yeah, I would have never in a million years, uh, 15 plus years ago when I started, realized that I'd be doing what I'm doing today. That's for sure. That's crazy.
I
So
like to try to bring things up to the current, and
yeah.
I think it's kind of crystal ball time, and I know it may be
Uh-huh.
difficult, but I'm curious about what are the hot topics, because one of the things we had said was you do have to be nimble, you have to be agile. So what are the hot areas or hot topics you would say in passive real estate investing currently, and what should people be looking for?
Yeah, I mean, I would say, f- as far as looking for, I mean, there's a lot of commercial opportunities. Uh, know yourself and know what should they be looking for. I mean, it's helpful to know like what percentage of your net worth that you want to invest into different vehicles. Because I mean, you could have 100% of your net worth into real estate and have and still be crazy diversified, because you could get storage units, you could get apartment complexes, you could get single family real estate, which is what we do. You can do debt investments, you can do equity investments. Um, so it really varies quite a bit. But like to me, what's always worked for me is I need to find somebody that I really know, like, and trust, that has a really good strategy that lines up and that's not fighting the market. So I mean, I mentioned some of the. It's like so selling a single family house. I had when I first started, I didn't use common sense. Like one time we bought a big red barn, and I tried to value it as if it was a normal ranch. And
Huh.
what I didn't realize was, well, this was a family home. A family's going to live in it. And there's not many women that want to live in a big red barn. So if you analyze it based on price per square foot, there's going to be a lot of people that say no to it, right?
Yeah.
So in that case, like the big red barn, it was a negative.
Mhm.
So when you're looking at investment opportunities, like are there negatives that are hurting the strategy,
Right.
or are there positives? So like I'll just say it again because I already said it, but like in single family real estate, like the housing shortage is just a massive positive, like a plus on the investing side. That's easy to understand. It's easy to get that. Wow, this is a great opportunity right now. Um, so like, yeah, so what's worked for me on the investment side is just trying to use a little bit of common sense and make sure that I really understand the investment. I had someone that pitched me a oil a oil deal, and
Mm.
I ended up not investing in it because I just didn't quite understand it. And then I find out 18 months later that $500 million was raised and ended up being a Ponzi scheme. Like they were paying these crazy returns from new capital that were coming into the old investors, and the whole thing ended up falling apart, and it ended up just being a big old scam. And so to me, I've always been of like the conservative mindset. Like, and people don't think about this. Like if you have $100 and you lose half of it, that's a 50% loss, right, Mick?
Yeah.
If you what then to get break even, it takes 100% return. You have to double your $50 just to get back to break
Exactly.
even.
Right.
So I've always really been of the mindset of, okay, I want to start with very conservative, predictable foundation for my net worth on,
Okay.
and get a solid rock of real estate.
Mhm.
So get that set up first, and then now I can branch out. And if I want to try and get like crazy high return deals or do like a value add type of investment that's like really high risk, but it could give me a really good return. Fantastic. Like a couple years ago, I invested into a pharmaceutical company that could get me 100x return, or it could go belly up and bankrupt.
Yeah.
And I don't care either way because I already have the foundation of my net worth set up, right?
Yeah.
Um, so that's just a little bit on my philosophy and how I like to look at things. Hopefully I did an okay job with your question there, Mike.
Yeah, and it's kind of interesting. I go, what everybody will tell you about real estate, right? It's the classic thing. It's like, what is real estate? It's location, location, location. But I was thinking when you were talking about the barn example, now knowing some markets in some areas of the country, because I lived in Pennsylvania for 25 years, I go, actually, a
Yeah.
barn is a good investment there, but you would have to know that. And the reason it is there is because there's a lot of old estates. So you have a big home, but then there are also then people who convert the barn into a home. And so it may not work in St. Louis or it might not work in somewhere else, but in some areas it is. And you have to know that area. So there's where the expertise comes in. And you have to know your market and you have to know what that location is looking for and what people want, what they desire.
Yeah. Yeah. And real estate's no different than like being a doctor or something like that. It's just a lot of little details like that to do it really well, right? I mean, I guess being a doctor, I'd say it's probably like a little bit more technical. It's probably a little bit harder to like remember and learn than just the red barn thing, like detail on that. But real estate has a breadth of there's like thousands and thousands of little things like that they all add up. They all take time to learn, and really like the thing I learned from the billionaire is to judge success by what you gave up to get it.
Mm,
And I don't think like we're the I mean real estate, like people like love the idea of the passive income, and the
yeah,
reality is it's not passive if you're doing the work. You're really
right.
building a recurring revenue business. In a
Yeah.
recurring revenue business, like if you're the one that's being the landlord and you're putting the money in, that's fantastic. Like that's what I am. I'm an active investor. My team makes
Mm,
it passive for other people, but I actually actively have to do it. There's nothing wrong with that, but just know what you're getting yourself into. And people watch TV and then they'll buy the first rental or two, or they'll talk about doing it for years because they conceptually love that financial freedom idea, and then it just doesn't seem to happen because of all the
mhm.
work that all the work that's required. So as a guy, like we want to think we can do everything or should do everything, but
Right.
there's these fund structures now out there that you can have experts do it for you. And I mean, I get jealous. Like I'm looking at how successful the last 12 months has been on what we have going on. And people that are sitting on their couch are making higher returns than I did in my first 3 years of figuring it out on my own. And I'm not an idiot, I like to think I know a thing or two and know how to execute and do good things. And um, so to me, what's more valuable is not necessarily knowing how to invest into real estate. What's more valuable is knowing how to be a passive investor and how to get the right people around that can then do all the work. Because if I'm actively doing it, oh, I can hire a property manager, fantastic. But what happens if the property manager gets hit by a bus? Or what happens if the property manager starts to neglect the property and they do a poor
Mhm.
job? All those problems flow back up to me as the active
Yeah.
investor that owns the property.
Yeah.
So even if you make it recurring, and at some point a decision will need to be made, even if the property manager is perfect, tenant turnover happens, and they say, "Oh well, we need to paint, we need to get a plumber out for a new toilet. Are you okay with it?" Like there's still decisions that need to be made. Um, Whereas if you just leverage a fund structure, it's amazing is that that team will be able to do all of it for you
Yeah.
and
It's
actually make it passive.
the one thing I'd say always the advantage of real estate. I say it's in the word itself, real estate. It's real, right?
Yeah.
So it is something which is tangible. And then it's a matter of finding out what the value of that reality is. So when people are thinking of investing, That's I always think the advantage because people got a wide variety of things. Invest in crypto, invest in
Yeah.
this and that and the other thing. But with real estate, it is real, so that you can attach a value to it. Where there are other markets that, I mean, stocks and other things that seems to be very volatile that you just don't know, right?
Yeah.
It's
Yeah, that's right.
unpredictable.
And and there's different risk profiles, right? Like single family real estate, like it meets the most basic human need of shelter.
Yeah.
Like it's a very low risk profile investment.
Mhm.
Yeah, you have to execute well. You have to know what you're doing. But when you know what you're doing, like it de-risks it quite a bit. Um, and I just get, I don't know, like maybe I'm just too conservative, but like I even look at what happened to Anheuser-Busch
Yeah.
last year in 2023. There's a social media influencer that made a post that a lot of people didn't like, and I forget how many billions that Anheuser-Busch stock lost, but I mean it was sizable. And you would think of several billion, or it
Yeah.
was several billion, and normally you would think of like an Anheuser-Busch as being a safe recession-proof
Should we think?
investment because people
Yeah.
buy more beer when there's a recession. And like I mean the reality is that the world has just changed a lot. There's all these computers that are trading, and there's the volatility. Oh, another war hits. Okay, well now people are going to freak out and start selling a bunch of stuff on the stock market, and
Mm.
it- it's just a lot different world. So for me, it's like and financial advisors probably won't tell you this, by the way, because um, they see it a lot. Most of them see this as competition, but like to me, it's, well, no, I want it like a real asset. It's not gonna matter if there's a war or what the economy's doing.
Mhm.
Um, that just is bringing me some cash, passive income, some cash flow coming in, and like to set myself up with a foundation that just doesn't have to go with the ups and downs and the whims of everything else. It's just super basic and super simple. Like the tenant paid us this month, we made $1,000. Fantastic. Like
Yeah.
it's not the environment of, oh well, how are people feeling about this stock?
Right.
Like,
And that's
like
why Vegas and the stock market seem very similar, right? It's just what people feel. They gamble because of what they feel, and often
and
buying and selling of stocks is what you feel.
and don't get me wrong, like I'm not anti stock market. It has, I mean, it's made a crazy amount of multimillionaires. There's a great wealth creation tool, but what I'm talking about is for your foundation of retirement.
Mm.
And like, okay, just because it's a great wealth creation tool doesn't mean it should be a foundation set up so that you have certainty and predictability and security. Um, so I don't judge. A lot of people will judge. Oh, well, what's the return? What's the return? What's the return? Can I make more money somewhere else? Like I don't really. I view it. I think it's a little more complicated than that. Like just the way like my hands grab things or my feet are used for walking. There's like I think there's a different pieces to your net worth that there's foundational investments for passive income to replace your income, right? Then there's upside investments where you can invest into a pharmaceutical company and try and get that crazy return. And then there's a portion of it to go into the stocks and everything like that. Um, but our financial advisors, unfortunately, most of them are a little bit in the stone ages with the alternatives now, and they're not going to recommend it to somebody directly because they view it as competition, or they're going to make a little bit less if money gets moved from their assets under management. They're actually biased on this one a lot of the time. Now, not all of them are. There are some that are very open to it, but I found a lot of people resisting to this, and it's unfortunate because it's the market of the moment. I mean, it's there's a whole trend going to these alternatives um, that everyone really, in my opinion, should be thinking about.
It's a really good question. I was thinking what would you recommend? Because I think that's what people would want to hear. Like, what kinds of things would you recommend? There's no average investor, but if a person was interested in passive income, what kinds of recommendations could you suggest currently?
So, I mean, I think the first thing when we're talking about passive income is like you do need to have money to make money. Okay, so like if you're somebody that hasn't saved and isn't generating money to invest, like I would say focus on like doubling down on wherever your job is, getting a promotion and everything like that. But um, so there
Mm,
does need to be some income coming in because passive income can't exist without money going out and doing work for you, right?
okay.
Um, so I'm under the assumption that somebody's making pretty good money, and I mean, what's worked for me was I focused first on single family real estate
Mm,
to replace my income. And then once I did that, then I started branching out into other things.
I see.
Um, so that's like I can just speak for myself and what I did
Sure.
on that one. And it's been a huge blessing for my family. It's been life changing.
With a lot of people out there, let's say there are a number of investors who would say, I'm the expert in passive income, right? So I'm curious how you would differentiate yourself and what would you say and what kind of expertise would you offer? What makes you different, I guess, with a lot of people and a lot of choices that people can make?
Gotcha. So we do have a lot of experience with it. So for the last 17 years, it's been over $250 million of properties have been invested on a debt investment. And the debt side of things is is a loan. And that's a really good piece to have as well. And because we're so experienced with it,
Mm,
we can say that, hey, in the last 17 years, we've hit promised returns 100% of the time on $250 million of real estate. Uh, and that has been like the secret to our success is really just building our company on trust and doing what we say we're going to do. And that's really, I mean, it's the reason why I have 5 real estate companies now. It didn't
mm.
start out that way. It's just, we did what we said we were going to do. And then that led to other people talking and now we're at what we're doing now. It's just been a huge blessing. So, so, I mean, I would say that would be a big part of it. And then trying to find investment opportunities that are quality returns without the risk. Um, so on the debt side of things, like we'll lend on real estate up to 70% loan to value. So if that loan were to get foreclosed on, um, there's still 30% equity in that property. So we're hedging our risk substantially.
Mm,
And we haven't, when I say things like, hey, 100% of the time we've hit our promised returns, it's not that we haven't had to foreclose on any of our loans. We have, but we've been able to take care of it. And because of that risk control that's in there, right? Um, and it hasn't been a problem. So, and then on like when we do our buy and holds, we also try to do that. I mean, we've done all sorts of strategies over the years. Like in my 20s, we were building a flipping company like you see on HGTV. And we
yeah,
were buying, fixing up, and then selling, trying to do it all in 3 to 6 months, cram it in as short as amount of time as possible.
right.
And because the exit strategy was so short, the market had to still be perfect. It couldn't shift on us or change. We had to hit the repairs perfectly, and like so,
Oh,
the margin of error on those deals was very thin. And especially when you do a volume of those deals, like you really have to run a tight ship. And we
right.
built it up to 120 flips at the same time. Was when we were doing that in our heyday. And then we found a strategy that's called a lease purchase strategy. that provides more cash flow up front and less risk, substantially less risk than what we were used to doing. We're like, whoa, instead of making $30,000 on a deal, we can make over 30 years. We can potentially make $1 million on this deal, and we can get $30,000 up front
Right.
when a tenant moves in on this strategy. So we're making similar money on day one. We're making more cash flow, and because the exit strategy, instead of being in 3 months, is now over the course of time,
Yeah.
that we're substantially de-risking it. So as an investor, what I look for is what's going on in the macro level.
Yeah.
Um, like, are there pluses or minuses with the strategy and what's happening? And then, like, how can I get that difference of quality returns with lower risk? And I'm willing to give up, I'm willing to give up like upside on returns if it allows me to lower the risk.
Okay.
Um, and in part because of what I shared earlier on, hey, if you lose money, then you have to double it just to get back to break even, right? So I mean,
Yeah.
I would much rather have a solid 12 to 15% return all day when in a very predictable way than go after a 30% return that I may hit, or I may lose everything. Um, so that's really what's worked for me on that is doing that.
It sounds you got the credibility, the experience, you got the
Yeah.
numbers. I mean, a lot of those things are really helpful, and especially having a conservative approach to it, that you are really looking out for the
Yeah.
person who wants to get in the field and also to assist you. So I'm curious then how people can reach out to you. So are you only working with people in St. Louis, or do you have enough of a cowboy hat to stretch out outside of St. Louis? And how do people get
Yeah,
hold of you?
yeah. So right now in our equity fund, we have 64 partners. We're getting ready to close it out to new people um, here in the next couple months, and so we do have some room right now. Uh, so what I've done is, if you go to jimmanning.com, that's my name, jimmanning.com. I have a bunch of resources on there. If you want to talk to us on like the fun stuff and see if that's a fit, we can absolutely do that. And the reality is, like, I mean, I can drive 10 minutes and run into people with a ton of capital to invest. And it can take me 6 months to put together some of these deals, right? So I wanted to be a bigger resource for people than just like if we have deals available, because we're not always going to have deals available, guys. Right now we do, but if you're listening to this on recording, we may not even have a deal available. So what I did was I created a resource called Passive Profits, and it's a step-by-step guide to your first real estate fund investment.
Right.
And I took a lot of knowledge from the 3,500 deals that we've done, and I poured it into a very comprehensive course on helping you
Awesome.
assess passive investment opportunities. Um, for the listeners listening in, 100% free. You just have to go to jimmanning.com. And I have other valuable stuff in there too. Like, I have a course on passive income. We in 2022 we generated $5 million in passive income with 3 real estate strategies. And I put it in a quick little 30-minute course on like what they were, how we did it, how we
Mm.
helped a homeowner make over 40 grand after she sold her house. And so if you just go to jimmanning.com, like, all that, you can get all that for free. And um, uh, just want to make it be valuable for y'all. So
Appreciate it. Yeah, there we go. Y'all.
yeah,
Jim, thanks for taking some time out. I
yeah.
appreciate all the advice, all the background. Got an interesting story, and I think it really helps out for people to hear. And how do you get into this whole thing? And people have heard passive income. What do they do? Who do they need to speak to? So thanks for taking some time out. I appreciate all the time and the expertise that you shared with us.
All right. Thanks for having me, guys. Take care.
You bet. So, if you like what you're hearing, hopefully you do, and we got some more exciting guests coming on, like Jim. Make sure that you will like, subscribe, share, and positively review the Dr. Digital podcast, especially on Apple Podcasts. That helps keep things coming and keeps coming your way. So it keeps the episodes running one after the other. So until next time, thanks for listening. For this time, Deus Volt.